So tell me what's something that you learned on the set of Endure Lebanon that you plan on taking to maybe your next film or your next slate of films. It's either something that you know to do or not do next time.
There's a bunch of things, and since it was just me like handling the equipment and handling the talent and like trying to figure out interviews, I definitely need to get more incisive and in depth with my questions during an interview.
Yeah.
Because like there were times when like my heart would just break because they're crying and like weeping, talking about seeing their family members who like died from the bombings and stuff. And I could tell that I could have asked another question to probe a little bit more and it would have been okay and they would have been fine and they kind of wanted to talk about it, but like my heart couldn't let me do that.
Yeah.
And so I think just being a little more incisive with the questions during an interview is definitely one. I definitely know what gear I need and what gear I don't at this point in time. So I took a bunch of gear that never used, and I needed a bunch of gear that I never had. So, yeah. I guess those are the big ones. I guess.
The question thing sounds very familiar to me. Honestly, this podcast, the reason I don't prepare, people are like, why don't you prepare questions? Can I have a list of questions? Like, no, I don't do that because when I did music interviews back in college with these bands I've been, wanted to talk to for forever, and I got these interviews, I would have a set of questions, and during the interview, I would have a great follow-up question, like you said, and I wouldn't ask it because it wasn't on my freaking list. So I would stick to the list too much, like, how's the tour going? Whatever. Like, well, we were talking about this real great stuff. So
Yep.
I was like, I can't do that on the show because it's got to get more in depth like that. So I definitely identify with that because you get so ingrained in the process, I guess, because you're like, oh, I got to hit these beats, whatever, instead of feeling where it's going. So yeah, I definitely get that.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And it's not an easy skill to hone. It's tough.
And I imagine, yeah, it's 10 times harder with the subject matter, just like you talk about people crying and stuff, and and like you said, your heart didn't want to dig into that pain, but that's kind of why you're there. But at the same time, you're like, oh, these are real people, but you're also making a movie. And it's like, ugh, what a dilemma. That sounds insane.
Yep. Yeah. And you like, I didn't want to feel like I was using them for anything. Like it was just, it's a hard line to walk when you're dealing with a subject like that. And didn't make anything easier that we most of the time had to go through a translator. So like they're crying and talking in Arabic or Kurdish, and I'm listening to a translators translate it with just emotionless. And so it's very confusing situation sometimes.
Man, yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool though. What an experience.